So it is the SEC Growth ModelOps staff meeting for August 17th, except for people who are in APAC, and it's already August 18th. Thomas, it looks like you have the first item.
Yeah, the first one's multi-part, but just making sure that everybody had not missed these announcements. First three we've seen in a bunch of different places. MR rate, it was being miscalculated for months, so it was an undercount by 20 to 30%. So this is an invitation to go check yours to see if it looks right to you. And so the issue capturing the realization is available there. Second item, error tracking. That is something that was a feature we had. It was pulled back. It's been rebuilt. It's on top of ClickHouse. It's in. So issues are available there. There's a user's guide for how to enable it, and this is also this is also something that's available for us to use on our own projects, should we choose to do so. And the third announcement is about FedRAMP vulnerability SLAs. There's a lot of details here. There's a lot of conversations happening around Slack and issues. So I won't try to read everything to it, but the main thing to know is that severity 4s are no longer best efforts. They now have an SL. They now have a time frame they're expected to be delivered in. So I'll pause in case people have questions about that.
What is the FedRAMP scanner? Where do these vulnerabilities come from? Is that a complicated question? Should I go read something?
It is a very complicated question. I defer you to the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Connor Gilbert, who is the PM over all of this fun stuff. The other thing that I'll offer. Go ahead, Seth.
I was going to say the vulnerabilities that have been coming in from our security counterpart, Nikhil, have been from the container scanning tool. We have a project that's set up for that. And that right now, it used to be running 3 tools. It was running our container scanner, Anchor, and Twistlock, and they pulled it back to just Twistlock. So I believe it is just container scanning vulnerabilities coming from Twistlock.
Okay. That's a good data point for me to go look why we don't officially support Twistlock. They removed the 2 that we do support. Thank you, Seth.
I'll add the link to the project here in a second.
Thank you.
All right, next item, section retro. We're going to be scheduling it for Wednesday, 31 August. I'm going to take the coffee chat times and shift those back down a half hour and take over those time slots, since those seem to work for the widest swath of people. But just wanted to make sure everybody knew that they were going to be scheduled. I'll be officially moving things around on calendars and starting to announce it by end of week. But I wanted to give everybody an early heads up that that's the date I was looking at. So those are the that's my section of the agenda. Now over to Neil for sports.
Sports, really? No, just a reminder. We've scheduled another team day. It's for SEC section. Everyone's welcome to join. It's next Thursday and Friday. Check out the secure stage calendar, or there might be a link in the issue. But we have a few slots scheduled right now, but if people have ideas, you'd like to host something, please do. Cool. I think that's it for news. Wayne, you got big rocks.
So any questions about the purpose of the new cross-functional prioritization process and the mechanics of what the quad needs to do in order to do it?
That link seems to be a 404. Is that moved?
That would be a problem. It is. That was great. Let me fix it. We've changed the name of the working group to make it consistent with the process. Let me get the right link. That would be useful, wouldn't it, Phil? There's a better place for it too. Gitlab conversation. So purpose. Okay, this is actually even a better link than the one that is 404. So the purpose is, since nobody got a chance to read it in advance because the link didn't work, Achieve an optimal balance of new features, security fixes, availability work, performance improvements, bug fixes, etc., via a framework that helps us drive conversations in alignment. Balance across these categories will allow GitLab to operate in a way that will allow us to meet revenue goals and maintain the stability of our platform. That's number one. Number two, giving voice to everyone in the quad. So PM, development, quality, and UX. And three, providing transparency and a prioritization and work status to both internal stakeholders of the group, of the quad for a particular group, and external stakeholders so they can advocate for what they want to. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I have one. It says under planning for the milestone. It seems to be that the product manager is now responsible for ensuring that the ratios are met and the prioritization's done. Is that a more recent change? I thought this was going to be slightly more collaborative.
So
The PM keeps the overall prioritized backlogs following the agreed upon type ratios and guidance from the E and Q and UX.
So the ratios are up to the quad. So PM development, UX, and quality for a team.
But so the quad determines the correct ratio, but it seems like it's the PM's responsibility to make sure we follow that. Is that correct? Is that what we want?
Yes,
Is that what we
because PM is scheduling the issues for milestones. PM does the scheduling based on the feedback from the quad on what should be in each milestone. PM actually is the DRI in scheduling things for a milestone, continues to be.
Cool.
The
So how
DRI
about
for scheduling for a milestone.
when things change during a milestone, we get a lot of unplanned work, new issues come up. Hey, maybe we should look at this, that, the other. Is that the EM's responsibility to make sure that we don't change things too much from the plan, the milestone plan, or not? So, I'm really thinking maintenance and bug fixing, the sort of unplanned work that comes out of production, that sort of thing.
I didn't completely get that, Phil. Can you say again? Or in a different
So
way?
we have a plan at the beginning of the milestone. We do milestone planning. We agree on a ratio. We've got a backlog that's prioritized. Our team understands that. Engineers can pick from the top of that backlog. But as things change and new issues come in, unplanned work, it's usually bug fixes, it's usually maintenance. That's going to change those ratios. Do we wait till the end of the milestone to consider that, or do we?
No, I think we do what we normally do. We evolve it as we go, we iterate on it as we go. And if the ratios are different than what we thought they would be, just note that and talk about why. And maybe the why is okay with the quad, maybe the why isn't. So not even doing the ratios that the quad wants to. That's not a problem. As long as the quad is okay with it, it's a good thing. If the quad is not okay with it, or it's a surprise for the quad, then that's something to discuss.
So halfway through the milestone, we get some new issues it's unplanned work. It's all maintenance. We know that's going to affect the ratios. You're suggesting that the quad discusses that and agrees on that change of ratio.
I'd say it should be an inform, not a discuss. They should discuss at the monthly review. Hey, this is what we thought it was going to be. Here's where it actually landed based on changing priorities, based on we thought this would make the milestone and didn't because it was more work or somebody went on vacation or whatever the reason is. And then so during the milestone, as things iterate, it should be an inform, not an ask. And then at the end, with each milestone review what happened in the last one, what the plan is for the next one, and then talk about anything the quad wants to do differently based on anything they learned from that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Good.
I'm curious, has anybody been working with their other quad members that closely on cross-functional review? I created like a checkbox for my planning issue. It doesn't seem to get like the most involvement. And so I'm wondering has any other EM like been confronted of like, hey, we've got too much maintenance over here, we need more features or anything like that? Like, has that situation arisen? All right, I'll take silence as a nope.
I think
Just
it's
wondering, just kind of wondering how
yeah.
everybody else is like working with the new process.
I think it's too early for that kind of thing to have good reports on that. And this is milestone 2 that we've officially followed this. I say that with a question, staring at Wayne, but he doesn't know that I'm staring at him. So
I think 2 is correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'd say from my perspective, I've been more aligned with the PM over any of the other quad members on the ratio. But outside of that, I think it's, like Thomas said, a work in progress.
Anything else on this one?
Just on your B there that you just added, I'm challenging the urgency
Yeah,
of
I haven't
this
brought up B.
request.
I haven't brought up B yet. Let me but thank you for challenging it. So I didn't write this. So the working group has dialed back a bit, which I think is the right decision, on how many teams we roll things out to when we first roll out something different or new, and how aggressively go after them. So do some groups before we do all, so we can get the feedback from some groups before we do all. And also, when we have goals of get something too close to 0, we didn't mean for that to be taken literally, even though that's what we said, and that's what people do as engineers, is we take things literally. It was an aspirational goal. Like if you set the goal too low, too easy to meet, you go, like if we set the goal to get to 10%, probably most teams would have gotten to 20. So we set the goal to 0, we don't really mean 0. We mean probably less than 5%. And we should have been more explicit about that. We've gotten a little better about that and how we making clear these things are aspirational. So it is a goal for all teams to get to issues and merge request type labels to close to 0%. And for all my teams, thank you, we are there. I did some of it, a lot of it myself over 2 days of an issue update flurry. But overall, it's fine. Like I actually learned a lot about a bunch of things that we're doing or planning to do. And it's not muscle memory for us. All groups are trying to do that for 15.3 and 15.4. We're also trying to get subtypes. So what I mean, like a type is maintenance, bug, or feature. Or we have an other category now too, if it really doesn't fit in one of those. Subtypes are if maintenance, what kind of maintenance? If bug, what kind of bug? And there's a couple, it's like maintenance colon or type colon maintenance is the type. The subtype is maintenance colon, and then there's a couple different choices. That's not been a goal to get that to a reasonable number until now. Across engineering or across the company, we're at like 80% undefined on subtypes. So really high undefined, roughly. Because it wasn't anybody's goal to do so. So Darva's team is and her PM counterpart are trying to get to close to 0 for subtypes in 15.3 and 15.4. So we can learn from how that went and figure out what to do about it, about what we learn when they try to do it. It's optional for other teams, including us. So I was writing as we were talking, so I didn't make that clear. It is optional for us to do this in August for 15.3 and 15.4. In September for 15.4 and 15.5, it probably won't be optional. Or it might be a month later. It'll be then 15.5 and 15.6. Then we try to make sure that's there for. So it's optional to go after subtypes. Appreciated, but optional. And if everybody says no, I'll be a little sad, but that'll be okay. If a couple groups say yes, that will make me smile. But I don't know what you're all doing. I don't know how hard this is to do. It may be a huge lift. So if you'd really rather not do it, please don't, because it's optional right now. So I'm not even asking for anybody's commitment today either. Think about it. And if you decide to do it, let me know. So,
Wait,
does that answer your
is
question
there-
about, sorry, Seth, does that answer your question about urgency and dust to settle that you put in there?
Not quite. The context is good. Now I understand what the goal is and what the request is, but I still don't understand. Are we missing data to make decisions? If we have that, it'll enable us to make some other choices. So if you have any,
We're not missing
But I
data to
don't-
make decisions necessarily. We're missing data to understand where time is spent, where we are investing. We don't know until we get the data. We don't know if we want to make decisions on it. But that's the intent is, we thought, in maintenance, I'm just going to make something up, group X or section Y. We thought in maintenance, most of it was being spent on scalability. People were guessing. But when we actually looked, it's spent in maintenance and some other subtype. Boy, that's not what the quad expected. Let's talk about why. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's not. Maybe we want to change things. But until we have the data, we don't even know what questions we want to ask about what the data is. So we're not chasing a problem. We're chasing the data to see what questions we want to ask. We're not chasing a question. We're chasing the data so we can actually figure out what questions we want to ask. That help?
that does help. That's clearer. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, Seth, I interrupted you, but Tiago put something in first. So go ahead.
No, I just added it. Is there a difference between MRs and issues? Like, is one more important than the other?
It's like asking somebody which of their kids do they like more than the others.
There's always an answer, isn't there?
I like MRs better.
No, but it's a great question because you want to prioritize where you put your time into, right? And not being silly.
Yeah, I mean, the
I'd
other
say in
thing
the
is
cross.
labeling is a different responsibility, or comes like I can go through and do all the issues very easily as an EM. The MRs is something that we're going to probably push to something like the GitLab bot and push on the individual engineers to label those.
So I would start with issues before merge requests. And the reason is that most of the cross-functional reviews have focused on issues. The trends and issues, not the trends and merge requests, but that's because just we haven't gotten to that yet. In the reviews, like we have enough to talk about before we get there. So if you want to prioritize and issues are easier, more natural, I would do issues first.
Okay.
Bill, it looks like you had something else to add here.
Oh, it's just a question for Seth. You said when issues get touched because there's a new label added, it resurfaces them in triage emails, but you'd only get that if you didn't have a milestone or a severity or priority. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably intentional then. It means we're grooming the backlog. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the issue I have is like when you add labels, it makes the issue seem fresher than it actually is.
Right.
And you can go and look at an issue that's been there for 2 years, no one's touched it. And then it's like, oh, all these labels got added. And it seems like it's got some new importance and value and all that. And it really hasn't changed other than someone going through and bulk adding labels.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the feedback and thanks for all, especially
Yeah,
all the
sorry, we have
clarification
one more.
questions. Oh, sorry, Nick, go
when
ahead.
No, I probably could have added this to Tiago's statement at the beginning, but regarding, and then you added some context around Darva's teams are going to be running this for the next 2 milestones. I strongly prefer to wait as well. I think being part of the working group, being part of the experiment, but seeing it rolled out so quickly, I think it's another great opportunity to pilot the process in a smaller scale. So I would prefer not to spend energy on this just yet.
Then
This
don't.
sublabel, I think the main types are great.
Yeah, so
think
make
Phil-
it explicit. No is an acceptable answer. So you don't prefer to, so don't. Not this time.
Cool.
And Phil, looks like you're on the same page for your teams. 5 is just a read only. We can skip over that. Sorry, not 5, 3A. Why don't we jump over to 3B? Seth?
Yeah, so this is one of the trends I've seen in a lot of content. We're moving to Google Docs. It's private. But one of the challenges when content is private is it doesn't say why it's private, which then makes it difficult to know whether we can include some of this information in issues. So I didn't know if there's specific aspects of this initiative that we can make public. And I would just implore people that are writing this content to say, hey, this is private because of, point A or point B or whatever, so that people don't inadvertently make it public. I asked this in the FAQ for the initiative to get some more clarity, but I don't know if anyone has any insight on this.
Tiago, you want to verbalize?
Are we at C with
At
Amal's
B.
question? Up B. Oh, I had. Thank you. Just starting to set impression that it seems like there's pockets of defaulting to private, defaulting to internal. Once we built that, once there's an internal private area, it became easy to add to it, and it's an impression. I could be wrong, but I was reading through some things there. I don't really see why this needs to be on the internal handbook.
I think, Seth, you've got you've hit the nail on the head there. The existing content often doesn't say why it is private, and that's probably something we need in the internal handbook. Yeah.
Great idea. I think that would solve what I'm getting the impression of. Yeah.
And what was my comment? So again, great feedback is I'd say ask Chun. He's I believe he's the DRI in engineering driving FedRAMP. Well, he's driving FIPS, which is a subset of FedRAMP, but Chun would probably know who to talk to about it. And I think there's a Slack channel where it's discussed. Maybe give it there as well. Thomas, you probably know the details more better than I do.
Yeah, I do. I'll add the channel.
Umar, you've got C?
Yeah. I was beginning the process of setting up the hiring plan for the new intern under static analysis. And I had some coverage for technical interviewers in the AMER region, but not in EMEA or APAC. So I was just curious if anyone had any recommendations from within our group around who I could volunteer or ask about joining the loop for this. And yeah, it is going to be primarily Rails, and then Golang would be nice to have.
It's not Golang, is it? Thomas just censored.
Yeah, it is Rails primarily, and then Golang. If it'd be nice to have Golang, but definitely Rails is a requirement.
We have Adam Cohen for Golang, but he's currently in North America time. Jay's dobbing in some people.
Perfect.
The list of interviewers that has been linked there, is there not enough in that list? There's at least 5 or 6 Ruby on Rails.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be actually something on my part. Would the list of interviewers in those regions, is there any preference when it comes to hiring to go through like team or section or group first prior to the entire list, or is it just whoever is available is the best practice?
There's no preference. For the internship, you can look at your team, you can move out and look at Sec and ModelOps and growth. If you can't find people who've done the interview training and who are already confident doing the technical interview training, then reach out to that list of interviewers. You'll just have to explain to them, and I'm happy to help with that, how we lower the bar. We're looking at candidates who can reach intermediate level by the end of the internship. So we expect there will be some gaps. And I'm happy to sync with anyone who wants to walk through what that would look like.
That
Have
works. Thanks for the context.
Have we updated this, Phil? I know there's a scorecard for our Rails engineers. Do we have a scorecard for interns that?
No, not at this stage. So we're piloting it over across 3 roles that all report up to Wayne at the moment, and we're using the standard Rails interview, and we want to know how far off the candidate is from becoming intermediate. So we want our technical interviewers to give us that feedback using the same Google Doc that they currently use. Where we'll be asking them the difference is, okay, maybe they're not at intermediate level right now, and that's one of the questions in the scorecard, but how far off are they? And they can work with the hiring manager to determine whether it's realistic for the person to reach intermediate by the end of the internship.
Okay.
Mon, you're hiring an intern as well. Do you have anything to add there?
I think for us, it was, we did for the Python interview, we had the feedback, it was because it was all new for ModelOps that it was already quite difficult. So we actually had to have an interview that makes sense. Also keeping in mind, most students in universities do not actually learn Python. So coming out of the university, it's almost really, really hard to have that a very high bar. So similar to what Phil said, like really being able to understand like if they're capable of learning to come to a certain level at a certain space of time. And what that actually looks like. And then we've also had, if they've taken any Python tutorials and things like that, we've collected also the rough list of the courses and things like that, just to get a better gist of what they've really learned as well. And then, the main part, it was like really talking to the technical interviewers and making sure they're aware of what that bar actually looks like, and having that standardized almost template of what we're really looking for, and that's crystal clear all through. So yeah.
Cool. That's super helpful. Thank you.
Amari,
I had the
you as well?
next
Sorry,
one.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go fast on this one. I know we're coming up on time. I have a new team member starting next week, and I was just curious to hear what other people are doing to welcome new team members outside of just setting up coffee chats or encouraging them to set up coffee chats. Just looking for creative ways for the team members to feel more welcomed and less isolated.
So obviously we have team meetings as well. It's good to introduce them in various team meetings. We have a Gitlab team meetings calendar, and there's quite a lot of meetings that someone new to GitLab might be interested in attending, just to get to know a few more people. I also suggest that they work with their onboarding buddy, who's usually in the same time zone as them, and find their own crew of people who work in their own time zone. These are the people who are going to be the maybe that they'll end up using as reviewers for their first MRs, people they can feel more comfortable asking those questions that you often feel embarrassed to ask. I know we're all supposed to have short toes and things like that, but newer team members often feel like they can't ask a stranger a question. So finding people in their own time zone to sync with, I think, is important.
Cool, that's helpful. Thank you.
Great, awesome collaborative discussion today, and a lot of the topics were not from me. Most of the topics were not from me, which is great too. It's our meeting, not Wayne's meeting. Awesome. Have a great day, everybody. Cheers.